want the people that are gonna take the screen.
Yeah, careful.
Yeah.
Be diligent.
Oh, yes.
I know, that's what I meant,
Especially with Bill Scott here.
just for clarity.
Just
Everybody's in now? Okay.
be mean, Alex. Social security numbers.
Okay. All right, are we ready? Going to call to order the Town of Kensington Town Council meeting for Wednesday, April 9th. We will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, next item on the agenda is the moment of silence. I did hear today that Jack Fitzgerald passed away from Fitzway. I think that's what
It's Automall.
Fitz Auto Mall, but he said the Fitzway.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm mentioning it is Mr. Fitzgerald was a longtime supporter of our Labor Day parade and sponsored it for many, many
Yeah.
years. I think he was our top sponsor for a long time.
Almost every year I've been here.
Yeah, so anyway, so I did want to mention that that he passed away today. Is there anybody else we should mention? Oh, okay, if we could lower our heads for a minute. Okay, thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. And I believe you and Nate made changes. Nate, what were yours? I didn't.
Yeah, I started one last
Sure.
sentence about the statement about needing for future capital improvements.
Okay.
Designated funding for the stormwater.
Okay, all right, good. All right, I don't know of any other edits that were made online. I think those have already been put into these
Yeah.
minutes that you have before you, so those changes have been made. So if there aren't any other comments, if we could get a motion to approve minutes.
What was the date of the?
March 12th. March 12th.
I'll move to approve the March 12th town council meeting minutes.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we're gonna move on down. Let's go ahead and do number one. This is an acknowledgement that the Housing Opportunities Commission, we have confirmed that they will be moving from the Dietrich Avenue location at the end of the year. And we are going to be forming a committee to kind of shadow the county on what exactly is planned for that building. Right now, or at least when they talked about moving out a couple of years ago, it was going to go back to MCPS for pre-K. I don't know whether that's still the plan, so we want to make sure that we are aware. I think the biggest concern is that it sits empty for too long. So I think that's a big concern. I think Nate, you and Connor volunteer to be on the.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll probably, I told Kate after the budget's done for the
Right.
county council, once
Okay.
they've adopted the budget, we'll set up a meeting with hopefully somebody from MCPS and from maybe Mark's office to see what the plan is.
Would it be good to also have whoever controls the community public space?
We could do that too.
Because right now it is a space that you're supposed to be able to use the gymnasium
Mhm.
and to be able to continue to make that a publicly available space during this interim time.
Community use public facility.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's recreation.
Yeah, it's
Right. Yeah.
listed, yeah, yeah.
So
Okay, well, as I said, my main concern is that the building will be sitting empty. HOC has been responsible for cutting the grass, maintenance of the building, maintenance of the playground and the
Yeah.
skate park behind the building. So I think to start off is to make sure that it's going to be kept up.
Yeah.
And then figure out what they plan to do with the building. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, depending on how definitive their plans are, I guess we'll tell when we meet them.
Right,
But it may warrant some follow-up with the public to engage the
Yes.
community to see what ideas.
Well,
they have.
especially if they're not gonna use it for pre-K.
Right,
So, I think we will engage the community once we have an idea. Sometimes they don't think that we have any reason to be at the table, but we
But we
do. The county has not yet acknowledged that we own a piece of the gym property where the gym sits, that we actually own a piece of that. And so we have every right to be at the table.
Yeah.
So, we need to get them to acknowledge that. May require our town attorney, who is on the call here, to write them a letter officially and making sure that they acknowledge that. Is that possible, Sue Ellen?
Yes.
Okay. I saw you shaking your head, so, okay. Any questions from the council? Further questions? Anyone from the audience have a question regarding HOC or online? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands, so we'll go ahead and move to the next item. Going along here. We do want to acknowledge that we did receive the petition for to put the Joseph Park sale as a referendum on the ballot in June. There was, I believe it was 400 signatures.
I don't know. Our Board of Supervisors of Elections is reviewing them.
Okay,
I'm not sure of the total.
okay, I think that's what Beth had said,
Okay.
but that's fine. So they're reviewing it and then we will, as long as there's 362, eligible, signatures, then we're good to go for the referendum. Okay. So hopefully we'll have that done. Would it be next week? I know Spencer's
gonna work on it tomorrow. but
Tomorrow?
Didn't get far today.
okay. All right, good. All right, thank you. And Martha, you said Martha Deal's gonna,
She can only do it in the evening, so he's gonna see how far he can get tomorrow.
okay. All right, and when you need me to, I can swear her in.
Okay.
So just let me know. Okay. All right, very good. All right, is there any questions regarding number B? Let's see.
Just to clarify for the
Sure,
participants, it would go then onto the,
on to the next
Ballot
ballot.
for
Yes.
June, this June
Mhm.
election.
So
but
we
what if-
will have
But what if there is not a contested election?
we'll still have, we have something to do.
But then there would be still a vote.
Well, we also would possibly have somebody on there that has never been elected and will need to be elected.
No, I'm saying no, but in the case that it isn't, because it will be on there, it's inevitable that we would have a vote
of some
a vote of some kind. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
So you'd either be voting for Darren and Connor in a referendum, or you'd be voting for Darren, Connor and someone else, or you'd be voting for
Yeah.
one of the current and someone else. So we will have an election.
Okay, because previous times we didn't vote.
We didn't vote.
If
Well,
it was
because-
uncontested
yes.
election, yeah.
Like I was uncontested, but I had to, my name was on the ballot.
The only reason I'm saying it is that we might need, I don't know if it's in our new election, we revised our election ordinance, right? Or our charter.
Right.
So I don't know if this,
Well,
Issue
Sue Ellen
has-
is on the
come
call.
up.
She can,
okay, yeah, I'm just flagging it just in case it becomes an issue.
I don't think it's an issue, Sue Ellen, if we had Darren and Connor were running uncontested to still have an election because we have a referendum.
Not at all.
Thank you. All right, good. All right, we have visitors. So I want to welcome Girl Scout Troop 34175. And you're here to talk about a little free seed library. Does somebody want to get up and talk about it?
We can adjust the mic
Yeah.
so it's
Yeah.
not so high. You want to help with that? Someone?
Willa is cute. So Willa, you pull it down. It's not gonna amplify, it just helps record.
No,
Tilt-
pull the
tilt the whole
mic down
microphone.
towards you.
Yep.
Yeah, there you go. Just push it down. Yeah, she's good.
Okay, so we are proposing a little free seed library, which we would build in one of the parks. If we have permission for that. And, so we're doing it for our Bronze Award, which is the highest award that a junior can earn in Girl Scouts. And our fifth grade juniors have decided that that's what we're going to do for our project. So we hope that we could get permission for us to do the free little C library. And we think it could benefit to the environment and to people who would like to use it. It could benefit to the environment by having the seeds. They could help with the have trees grow, and we could have flowers, and it would just make everything more lively. And then it could benefit to people, for people who need books and don't have enough money and need something that could help them. So we hope that we can get permission for the free little seed library.
So I have a question. I know what a little library is, but what is a little seed library?
So it's like a little place that we made with materials to put seeds in it.
Okay,
So anyone can go up and grab any seeds and plant them either like in their backyard, or if they have a place they would like to plant it that's special to them. So just those seeds can be used to like for anyone who wants to use them.
so that, are they like in a packet?
Yes, they'll be like in a little packet and there'll be a few seeds in it, and anyone can go up and grab them.
Okay, is it flowers, including vegetables too, or just flowers?
Like vegetable seeds, fruit seeds, wildflowers, and
How does that work? Obviously you plant seeds mostly when, in the spring?
Yeah.
Okay, so how does this, what do you do with the seed library, let's say in the winter time?
so we have also planned to put like books in the little free library too. So it's gonna be split, so it can, in the spring or summer, you can go and plant flowers. And then when it gets cold in the winter, they could either save the seeds or they could get books to read during the winter.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Council, you guys have any questions?
Well, I know when I buy seeds that I use like half of them and then throw them in a drawer and I try to plant them next year and they don't grow. So I think this is a great idea to, use up the packet.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. I love the idea, so thank you for proposing it. We have a little free library at our house and people use it all the time, so I love that you're gonna also have books in it.
Yeah.
Who's going to replenish the seeds? I can imagine people just kind of running there and taking them in a couple days. Are you planning on refilling them?
So we're hoping to put the little free library somewhere close, because we, a lot of the Girl Scouts, we live near where we want to put it. So we're hoping like we can maintain a schedule so someone could go and restock, and we're like thinking of doing each month or so, or if we notice it's running low, anyone that from our Girl Scout troop that sees and can add any more seeds or books.
Great. Will you also encourage the community to bring their own seeds?
Yes, we would definitely encourage anyone who has any seeds or books they would like to donate to the little seed library.
Okay, we also have a very active greenscape committee that is very, I would say, passionate about native plant species. Are you planning on keeping it native seed varieties for the
Yes.
flowers? Okay, that's great. I know this was the Fairfax example. I didn't see that was in Kensington. Last question was, I think you're planning to paint it or stain it. Is that part of the project?
So might give it some color by painting it, so it's just not kind of plain, so it kind of like sticks up, pops out, because we feel that if it's something kind of like a plain color, people might not get attracted by it, so we want to just add a little bit pop of color.
Okay, I'll say it for our town manager, because he probably would say it. Maybe just plan to work with the town staff on what color you ultimately pick so that it fits well in the location. But I think it's a great idea. Thank you for proposing it.
Anybody else?
I have a question. I love this idea too. I have actually two questions. One, if you could just share a little bit more about why you chose the seed library as the idea for the bronze project. We'll start there.
So when we had our first bronze board meeting, we made like a bunch of slides, and one of the main things we wanted to do was we wanted to like help like stop food insecurity. So like, we were an idea we had was we might make a little free food pantry, but, we realized like animals or like insects could get in it, so that wouldn't be like the smartest decision to do.
Mhm.
And then me and my friend decided we wanted to do a little seed library. And so we decided to like combine all the ideas to have like, and if you also want to we could like incorporate like books if you. Yeah, because a lot of troops, they either do like little seed libraries or little, just book libraries. And we decided we wanted to incorporate both and put them together so it could go to a double usage instead of just one.
Very cool. Thank you for sharing. And then my second question is whether when you were doing research into seed libraries, if you read anything about how to protect the seeds, because when they are exposed to heat or moisture, it can make it difficult for them to, germinate properly later when they get planted. So I wanted to hear a little bit of your thinking about that.
Well, we're planning to put them like in little packs. So we're hoping that they do not get ruined when we put them in the little seed library and in those little packages. I know Willa here, she did most of the research for the little seed library, so she might know a bit more. So we were planning on doing kind of like a slanted roof a little bit, so kind of protect it so it wouldn't be like entirely like black. Yeah, and just painting on it, like just to like give it a little bit. And that's just,
And maybe also could look for a shady location.
yeah, we're hoping like maybe under a tree or something would be nice.
Okay, well, it sounds like you're doing it seasonal anyway, so, they're not necessarily gonna be in there, starting in maybe November through March or something like that when it's too cold. But you kind of bummed me out. I have a lot of
No,
seeds in
no.
my shed. They're probably no good.
I don't like the extremes, like cool, dry places.
Okay.
That's why they're not growing. in my house.
Also, and they have like, we went there and like we saw their little seed library and theirs was in like a little container, like a little box that they like stored like inside there. What is that be?
So that was inside a building or inside of a, yeah, because I think in one of your examples, it looks like they had a seed library at a library. And they do have the native plant sustainable garden at Kensington
Kensington,
Library. Maybe
yeah.
there's a tie-in there, but I don't know how that fits with your visibility and accessibility. That's another idea.
So we're just deciding if we want to put it indoors, which could keep like the seeds safe inside, or if we should put it like outside so many people could see it and be able to use it.
Yeah.
Wonder if you could make one that's movable, you maybe have it out. I know we were talking about parks, but if you had it outside of this building and then in the winter, you could bring it inside. That's an option.
Oh, yeah. A lot of people come through this building.
A lot of people
okay.
do.
Right outside of there.
Oh, right, or outside of town hall was one of your ideas? Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Well-
Like at a park or something, so many people go to the park, so just like one of the parks would be fine also, but we just hope we could do that out town.
Okay. I think that would be good. All right, well, I think we have to ask keep saying I work at a church congregation, sorry. We have to ask the audience and the people online whether they have any questions. And so does anyone in the audience have a question or anyone online? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands. Council, are we in line that it's a good idea? We just have maybe staff work with the troop to find the right location?
I would support that.
Yes.
Yep,
Yes,
agreed.
100%.
Okay. All right, you can work with Matt and Alex. And they will work out a location. I kind of like it here though, so we have the flexibility, but I'll let staff figure that out. Okay, great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
But you have to stay for the rest of the meeting.
No, you don't. Because we're gonna talk about number 3.
Oh, yeah, that's.
Yeah.
Might wanna.
Yeah, you can leave, okay. Well, thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
Thank you. We really appreciate your work.
Take care.
Okay, so we're gonna move to number 3. This is really more of an update. We've had some conversation. This is regarding a proposed cannabis dispensary. We've had a lot of conversations with Montgomery County as well as the residents, particularly the ones on Farragut. And I want to make it perfectly clear, the town does not control this. We do not have zoning authority. So, but we are concerned about the location, particularly since one of the sensitive areas, there is a church that has been recognized in the office building with the giraffe mural. So it is less than 500 feet away from the proposed cannabis dispensary. That's a sensitive area that the state has identified. But we have worked with Council Member Stewart's office, and basically it will be up to is it Park and Planning?
Department of Permitting Services.
Right,
They need to define what a church is.
Yeah.
They need to determine what a church is.
Well, place of worship,
Yeah, place of
Yeah.
worship.
that's how it's
Um,
written in the state law.
What has been relayed to us is they're gonna evaluate it based on structure. They need to define that. They're working with the county attorneys, and then they will provide feedback through the county executive's office to us.
right. And we have gotten a contact in the county executive's office for one of the residents on Farragut to get in touch with. So we are not sitting here quite in the middle since we don't have the authority. But we agree that there's a sensitive area, but it's not necessarily up to us for the what the intent was when they wrote the law. So that's where we are with that right now. Go ahead.
Matt, Tracy, has anybody had any more conversations with DPS as to what happens to the application? Since this place of worship has been identified within the radius, and DPS acknowledges they have to build a process to figure out how to deal with it. What happens to the application?
So what they're looking for is a use and occupancy permit, so
Yep.
that the UNO is what they needed. So right now it's kind of on hold determining whether, once they define place of worship, then they'll be able to determine whether they can approve the UNO or not. Now, we do not issue UNOs, that's why we're not involved. We defer to the county. What the county will do in every situation is they'll have the applicant contact the town, and the town will provide a letter release saying, we do not issue UNOs, goes back to county DPS, and the county DPS acts. Mayor Perman has spoken to Council President Stewart's office quite a bit on this. It's really defining DPS working with the county attorneys to define a place of worship and whether UNO will be issued.
And I believe on the last call we were on that there were some HVAC systems that needed to be upgraded in that space, which are very expensive upgrades. And I don't think the applicant is going to want to put more money into the space until they know that they have the license and the use of occupancy. So, I don't know how fast they can make the county move, but I don't think any more additional work is going to be done in the building until they know whether they can or can't get a license.
And what should residents do if they want to engage on this topic? Because it's not us.
Well, they could certainly, I'm happy to provide the contact that we gave to one resident who has been, who actually discovered the church. I don't necessarily feel bad for the applicant, but I think when they were looking for a traditional, church building like St. Paul's across the street. and didn't bother to look into an office building and read the directory, only to find out there's actually 2 churches in that building. 2, yeah. So I think that's what they need to determine. And you know, state laws cannot anticipate everything. That's why lawyers and judges kind of try to figure out what the intent was and then make decisions. Sure. You're gonna have to go to the front though, sorry. Just give your name and your street that you live on. Don't need the number, just the street.
Well, I will tell you my number because it's 3709 and my backyard,
Oh, you're on Farragut?
it borders this building.
Okay,
So I have some very intense interest in this.
sure.
Yes, so first of all, I want to say, I understand you're in the middle and I'm not trying to make you in the middle. I do want to say that I was very surprised. I don't like surprises. And when I learned about it, it was like, you know, in process.
Well, I think we learn the same way. They are somebody renting a building, well, they're under no obligation to tell us they rented to Mr.
Oh,
Smith.
yeah.
So we don't usually find out until they apply for some sort of building permit or a sign. Usually it's a sign permit. Then we find out.
Okay.
So we didn't find out any earlier than anybody else, you know, on MoCo 350, I think is how we all found out about
That's
it.
where I found.
Yeah,
I want to say my name. My name is Leslie Westbrook. My
Mhm.
husband
Yeah, I've
is
had an
Roger
email,
Fritz,
yeah.
And we're both Unitarian ministers.
Mhm.
So we have some pretty strong feelings about this.
Sure.
From that perspective. Because it is, even though it's not a state illegal drug, it is a federal illegal drug on top of everything else. We're really in the middle of a variety of things here. I really hope that you'll do whatever you can. My block, we're all so upset about this. And anything that you can figure out that we can do to be supportive of them not moving in, I would really appreciate some feedback from you, because I've been just sort of sitting there with the information dribbling in.
Right.
I'm glad to hear that it's still in process, that it's not a done deal.
No,
As far as I can tell.
it is not a done deal. We do have our town attorney, of course, online, but it really is up to the county. We have provided the information. We accept it as a sensitive, you know, area,
Mhm.
but it's not really our decision.
I understand that.
So,
I do want to say that, and as much as we've lived in this house for
Mhm.
more than 30 years, we've seen a lot of stuff happening
Oh,
in that
sure.
neighborhood. And we remember when what is now the Montessori school was going to become a funeral home
right.
right next to that park.
Mhm.
And luckily, we had an attorney who lived in our neck of the woods.
Yeah, Cliff Sharman,
Who worked on that
Right.
process, because he had his own personal interest in it also.
right,
So I come out of that experience feeling like it's not a done deal.
Right.
That there is some possibility that we could gather together and block this. I think it'll affect, when I think about the other renters and businesses on that street,
Mhm.
I wonder, how is the dentist going to feel about this? How is the chiropractor going to feel? These are other people who provide health services.
right.
This is
Well,
a problem from. a
Yeah, I mean,
variety
these
of
are
perspectives.
popping up there. I mean, there's one in Chevy Chase, there's at least two in Bethesda, they're in Rockville, there's Gaithersburg, they're up in Wheaton, I mean, they are coming.
Oh, I know they're coming.
yeah.
I just don't want them in my backyard.
I understand
Yeah.
that, so,
I'm not against it.
Yeah.
I don't want you to misunderstand
Yeah.
and think that I'm against the use of what I used to call pot.
yeah,
So, but I don't want it in my backyard.
Okay.
So thank you very much.
you're welcome, you're welcome.
Why I
Darren,
should
you
s-
remember the funeral
I
home,
remember
but
that.
Darren was fighting against that too
I
back in the
I
day.
have to say, I have a little sympathy for what the state and the county are undertaking with respect to this problem,
Mhm.
because I would hate to be responsible for defining what a church is.
Place of worship.
Place of worship.
Place of worship,
Yeah,
even
Yeah.
better, because that's the last thing I want government doing,
right,
and yet this is what they have to do. And so it's kind of an interesting place they're in, and I'm glad we're not in it.
And, noted, there are two places of worship within this building. We have several other examples of places of worship in other commercial spaces within the town. This is not a foreign concept.
Right.
My last comment, Leslie, and anybody else on your block, because it is not up to us and it is at the county level, on the state's cannabis information website from the Maryland Cannabis Association, it also talks that local jurisdictions, municipalities could choose to enact a 100-foot radius from individual personal properties, like residential properties, areas zoned for residential. That is not currently in, like Montgomery County has not chosen to take that up. We can't do that. That has to be done by Montgomery County. So reach out to Kate Stewart. That's our local District 4. You could talk to any of the at-large and just ask them, 100 feet is more or less one property, right? So it's not a huge distance, but it at least means that, it wouldn't abut a residential area on top of the 500-foot radius from primary schools, secondary schools, parks, libraries, places of worship. I think there's one or two others. So you may engage at the county council level as well.
Oh, Sue Ellen, go ahead.
Yeah.
Just wanted to note that there are alcohol beverage control laws that have the same kind of restrictions for being within so many feet of a school or a place of worship. So they should be able to figure this one out. I think they've had to do it before.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, the one thing you can't do, you can't make the cannabis more restricted than alcohol. So that's, that was the state's way of saying, you're not going to get rid of cannabis, unless you get rid of alcohol too, as far as locations. So, okay. All right. Are there any other questions or online or in the audience? Okay, I don't see any hands. All right. Thank you very much. All right, we're going to move down to number 4, the 10223 Summit Avenue.
Sure.
Matt?
Mayor Council, we have a variance hearing this evening for 10223 Summit Avenue. Mr. Paul Sexton is here. The variance request is between 6 and 8 inches. The reason why there's a difference there is, and I'll let Mr. Sexton explain this a little further detail. The lot line is not straight as we have in many of our historic properties, but there's also a change in the foundation from the site plan. But essentially what we're asking for is, or what Mr. Sexton is asking for, is a variance of up to 8 inches on the lot line within our 10-foot side yard setback requirement in accordance with section 5-104 of the building. The updated site plan is in your packet. It's also available to the public. And I will invite Mr. Sexton up to explain his lot line issue in more detail.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Mayor and Council, for
And just give your name and your
Okay.
address. So.
Paul Sexton, 10223 Summit Avenue.
Okay.
Thank you very much for having me tonight, and thank you for only putting me behind one contentious issue in line. And please have less questions for me than the Girl Scouts. But I'm asking for a variance tonight to continue a wall back on a renovation that's being done that is in line with the existing wall, just inside of the 10-foot setback by a few inches. And my hope is that the council would approve that variance so that the work can continue without the foundation wall, which was only found to be in that setback when a wall check was done after an initial survey was done incorrectly, so that the work can continue.
I believe was there a letter from
We
the
did receive
adjoining property owner?
to the property to the north, which is adjacent to the location, submitted a comment. They were in favor of the variance.
Okay.
I just want to clarify, typically in these situations, there is an exemption within our code. Of any addition of 650 square feet or less, they can follow the existing lot line. This did not apply in this case. The proposed addition is over 900 square feet, so the exemption did not apply.
Any questions?
So the drawing that we have, is the original, what you thought was your original lot line was the black line, and then it was changed to be the blue one?
So there is a fence that runs along that line that was the understood boundary in two of the site plan that we received when we bought the house, and then the first survey we got when we were starting the work. That turns out to be not correct, and so I would have to look, I apologize, at the picture you have to know.
So that's existed, kind of, the site plan has existed on record for quite some time, basically, or
I apologize, can you clarify for me?
the black dashed fence, it looks
Yes,
like?
that
was
that
what you
has
presumed to
existed.
be your,
That has
Lot line.
existed for a very long time, yes, and the existing wall of the house that was there before the project started is also inside of the 10-foot setback, so that was in there when the house was built in the 50s, which I believe was before the 10-foot setback was put in place there. So it's not that we're just kind of continuing a wall as is.
and you already have some, like a shed that's.
Yeah,
on the
that
line.
will move at some point because that shed is in the neighbor space, but I think that shed has also been there for
Yeah.
decades and decades at this point.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
So you did get fewer questions than I remember.
I appreciate
And I'm gonna credit the thorough
Yeah, staff report.
information by the staff in the packet.
Yes, it was very good.
But if it doesn't pass, they can have the roofing material. and safety thing.
Okay, no talking from the audience. You have to go up to them.
Report the loss of square footage to SDAT. Okay,
Good.
Okay.
it's a good year to do that.
Yeah, okay. Does anybody in the audience or online have a question about the variance?
Can I ask a general question?
Sure.
To Matt? So in this situation, to avoid it in the future, do you recommend to residents that they confirm the site plan
Yeah, so.
before they do this?
So we take it as is. I mean,
Yeah.
we, you know, and it just happened that Paul ran into an issue that we don't always run into.
Yeah.
You know, this is a historic district. The lot lines are not straight. This happens quite a bit in the historic area. You know, it's a very minor variance, and, you know, we would, as you read in the packet, the staff is recommending it based on peculiar circumstances of the
Yeah.
lot line. Unfortunately, as Paul and I discussed this from the beginning, we told him he did need a variance when he brought us the new updated site plan. And again, it's very minor, considering what he's doing in the project, so.
Yeah, but I'm just asking,
Yeah.
because like to avoid any hardship like this again for future times.
I would recommend a different survey company. I don't want to use actually,
So,
but I wouldn't speak ill of anyone on the record.
Paul, stay up there real quick. How long did you purchase the house?
3.5, 4 years ago.
Okay, and so at that time, there was a survey already given to you when you bought it, right?
Not a complete survey, but a boundary state,
Boundary.
yes.
Okay, and that's what you use for,
No, then we got another survey done that is the one in error, and so we had to get, and that was only found out when we did the,
I don't know how we
You
prevent.
can't prevent
prevent
that,
that.
yeah.
I mean, you did everything possible to build in the buildable area of your lot.
correct. And the only reason this was found out is because after the foundation was poured, a wall check is done, and that
Mhm.
surveyor, who was different than the initial surveyor, found the error.
Clearly better.
I mean, there are areas in town, we have no idea where a right of way is.
Well, this happened on Summit Avenue,
Yeah.
remember?
Yeah.
We were trying to understand the
It happens
sidewalk.
with the town.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
with our own right of way.
Yeah.
Every few years, we get an issue, so.
And not that this matters at all, but a tree that the county said belonged to me, as it turns out, belongs to the county and to somebody else. So I don't know that there's clarity on several levels for what is where in a particular lot.
Then let me ask you one other question. If we were not to grant this variance, what would that mean for your project?
I would live in my parents' basement several months longer with a 6-week-old baby, my wife, and a 2-year-old.
At what cost?
I don't know that that cost is calculable, but the cost of the construction to move the wall would probably be again between $10,000 and $15,000 to knock it down, clear it out, and re-pour to be a few inches further in.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, there were no questions in the audience. Oh, sure, Leslie, go ahead. Name and street.
Leslie Olson, Whately Street. So, what year was the variance changed from 8 feet to 10 feet?
You mean the
Gosh,
setback?
Is that back?
The setbacks.
yard.
Setback, sorry.
It's been a while.
It was before Susan and I, so,
Oh, so that's been a long time.
yeah,
Yeah,
20+ years.
yeah.
at least.
Would that be a factor in,
Not in this situation.
not in
So
this
we
one?
do have that exemption that I mentioned. The problem is, his addition is greater than 650 square feet. So it can't follow the existing lot line. So if his addition was smaller than that, then the exemption would apply and he wouldn't be here this evening.
Yeah, like if he's putting on a small porch, but he's actually adding probably what, a room?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, so,
Plus a little bit.
for your baby.
but going back down along the same side as his existing house?
you'd have to go down to 7 feet if the addition was 650 square feet or less. And that's at the council, when they did this at the time, they did that intentionally because we have lot line issues, especially in the historic district. And as I mentioned, in the town, we have our own problems
Right,
with the same situation, so.
No, I was just thinking that a neighbor had a similar problem, but their house was built with a 8-foot setback.
Mhm.
And then when they went to extend, it's now 10 feet. So they had to get a variance to be able to continue.
Yeah.
And it was a few inches. It wasn't much. But anyway, okay, I was just curious.
okay. Are there any other questions? Okay, do you want to make a motion?
Well, so we vote on it
There,
next
that's-
month, right?
Yeah.
Well, I thought we were doing
We
a,
give a thumbs up and then they could do the work and then we vote next month.
Yeah,
That's
so
right.
we need.
Oh, I'm
direction-
sorry, it
We
was a
need
hearing.
direction to draft a resolution either in support or denying
Okay,
the
all right.
variance. We would, if this turns out to be supportive, we would draft a resolution and support it based on the peculiarity of the lot line.
okay. Are we
I'm in
in
favor.
agreement for that?
Yeah, I'm in favor.
Do we?
No, I mean, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay, good. All right, great.
But you have to stay.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the basement.
Yeah, let's see, I want to go ahead and do the ordinances before we go through because I know we have, one person for number 2. So, Scott has 2 kids with one on the way, so I'm sure, your wife would like you to get home for bedtime, if it hasn't hit already. So, let's go ahead and, do the public hearing for number 2. Matt?
Thank you. Mayor Council, before you this evening is a public hearing on ordinance number O-03-2025. An ordinance of the mayor and town council of Kensington to amend chapter 5, housing and building regulations by enacting article 7, transient lodging facilities to incorporate chapter 54 of the Montgomery County Code entitled Transient Lodging Facilities, which contains various provisions to protect, regulate, and license hotels, bed and breakfast, and short-term residential rentals, and to make conforming changes. This variance is before the council this evening due to a policy change by Montgomery County Department of Housing and Community Affairs. About 6 months ago, Montgomery County previously to that was enforcing these regulations within the corporate limits of the town. They went back and determined and realized that the town never adopted and incorporated chapter 54. They stopped enforcing in what caused the problem with Airbnbs in the town. We've had an issue with one specific Airbnb and we have not been able to enforce any regulation on it the last 6+ months. This ordinance would adopt chapter 54 and defer to Montgomery County to go back and continue to enforce regulations on these properties.
Can you give some examples of what the regulations that we're missing out on because of this?
So they can regulate basically everything from making sure that the tenant is the primary owner. If they're leasing out something else like an ADU or something, noise violations, making sure that there's regulations and licensing for them. There was, I believe, a license for this specific property that's caused this ordinance. There was 2 permits. There was one for the Airbnb of the main residential property, and then they were also renting out the ADU. The ADU license was revoked, but they could not, the county could not revoke the primary residency for the Airbnb due to the number of complaints that they received and what was happening with the property. I know the police have been involved, and I'm sure you could, if you want, you can provide additional information. Obviously, this got our attention, and there was nothing we could do until we adopted Chapter 54.
Okay.
So this is,
That ADU must have been the size of a shed. I mean, there's not a big yard back.
yeah, and I mean, there was some communication with town staff and the county for quite a while why they could not enforce this. There was no record of us not entering in the 54, and Council President Stewart's office was able to clarify that with us.
Okay.
So,
Scott, did you want to get up? Just
Sure.
name and street.
Scott Helms. I live on Lexington Court, across the street from a property that is Airbnb. You know, some weekends it's okay. There might be, you know, a family coming and you know, seeing DC or something like that. But most of the time, you know, the property is 4 or 5 cars. It's a small 3-bedroom house, so it can't be that expansive. In addition to the fact that someone is also living there. So, you know, you might see 5 or 6 cars parked in the driveway or around everything. You'll get noise parties, things like that. One night we had teenagers having a party. It was loud. And in fact, some of the teenager boys were kind of play fighting, wrestling around, and wrestled right into my fence and just broke it, which I've recently replaced. And in addition to that, there was a time when I think they were filming a music video in there. So several vans came with unloading, you know, all kinds of equipment. And this music video went into the evening, and then they kind of packed up and left at like 11:30. So I would encourage, you know, the council to adopt this, or in fact, maybe in the future go further. It's very disruptive for the residents in the area. You know, I don't think it's appropriate use of the property. And there's no way to, you know, kind of check that they're, you know, doing this properly, or, you know, that there's not 16 people staying in the house for 2 nights. And it can be very disruptive. So I would encourage you all to adopt it.
So how does the ordinance work if he's having a problem? I know that you can't call the county because we're not follow it, but if once we adopt it,
So
how does that work?
So our standard procedure is that we defer to the county, but we allow ourselves to enforce if necessary. Same thing we do with the animal. And if there was a further issue, we would not enforce this. What we would do is we just allow ourselves to enforce it, but we defer to DHCA. DHCA would come in and regulate and potentially revoke the license. I will add this, within this regulations as well, the county would also be able to enforce bread and breakfast and potentially hotels for us as well. So it's more than just Airbnbs. So this is a regulation that would help us potentially in the future with other development projects.
So if there are like a lot of calls in this particular property, then more than likely
They
they
will
would just
evaluate-
lose their
They
license.
will evaluate the property, yeah.
Okay, just want to make sure that there is something good that comes out of this, not just, okay.
I have a similar question. So do we know, has the county been actively enforcing complaints on,
They were until 6 months ago.
not even this
Yeah.
property, I just mean in general in the county? Like, I
Yeah.
understand that there was a loophole here,
Yeah.
but they actually
They are.
are
Yep.
enforcing. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, we were getting complaints, you know, the last couple of years, we'd send it to DHCA and they would.
I think they actually hired more staff and manned up.
And I
Okay.
think that's why, when they caught that we didn't adopt chapter 54,
Okay,
because that seemed to be what the issue was, because we were trying to figure out why they stopped enforcement.
They did strip them of their ADU
Mhm.
license because they're not the primary resident, they don't live there.
Okay,
Yeah.
So you have to rent out an ADU, you have to live.
You have,
in the house.
you have to live in the primary, but they
Okay.
couldn't do anything with the primary residential property for the Airbnb, because again, we had not adopted chapter 54 and they would not regulate.
Okay,
And
well,
we-
I
we
mean, I'm
haven't
not
regulated-
surprised they're being tougher because it's not a very popular thing for, anytime you talk about, housing in general.
Yeah.
That's what people are afraid of is more Airbnbs.
And the reason why this is an issue, I think is either 2017 or 2018, I can't remember the year, when the county put in the regulations for the Airbnbs, the town took no position on it. And I guess at that point,
When was that?
it was 2017 or 2018, and I can't remember the year.
Hmm.
The town took no position on regulating Airbnbs, and we just deferred to the county for enforcement. And they were enforcing until about 6 months ago.
Okay, okay.
Matt, does this also have to? Is there also a loss or a missed revenue from taxes that relates to this?
Could potentially be for hotels.
For
and-
lodging.
Yeah, and lodging, yeah.
Because there's Airbnb charges like local
Mhm.
government fees and everything, so that would also
Yeah.
come back to us. Okay.
Oh, Jody? Thank you, Scott.
So I also live on Lexington Court, right across from this house. It's the Airbnb. So at first, when we found out it was an Airbnb, I wasn't really concerned about it. But it has been a problem. There was this night when, late Saturday night, when there were all these cars across the street from the house in our court, where, when Scott's fence got knocked down and all these teenagers were there and Scott had to call the police. And then there was another night when I was coming home from being at Baby Cat and there was this filming going on and they were in the court and they were filming some scene for some, I don't know, TV show or movie. And so they were in the court filming across the street into this house on Lexington Street. And then they told me, of course I talked to them. And they told me then they were going to another Airbnb in another location where they were going to film another scene for this TV show. So, and then there were a lot of cars a lot of times. And so it is, there is some disruption to the neighborhood. And I think the people that own the house, they live in Indiana, I think. They used to live in the house, and I don't think they're aware at all of what's going on. I think they've turned this over to a management company, and I don't think they're aware at all of what's going on with the house and who's renting, who they're renting it to or anything like that. And I think that's a real problem.
Okay.
So-
Yeah. Does anybody else have a question or comment? I don't see any hands. Council? We'll be leaving the hearing open until next
4 PM
May.
on Friday, May 2nd.
May
We'll
2nd.
need a motion for that.
Okay,
And we'll also need to actually amend the ordinance upon approval. We had to move up our May meeting so we can submit the tax rate to the county. So we need to change the effective date of the ordinance that's listed. So it'd be moved up 1 week. So we'll do that in May,
okay.
an amendment to change the effective date.
Well, we're keeping the hearing open until
Correct.
May 2nd. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm in favor of moving forward. I just have one other question I thought of. Do town staff get a lot of other complaints from around town from the public, or do we need to?
Not that often.
Okay,
I mean, we get them. I mean.
On Airbnb?
on
Or-
Airbnb, I'm just wondering if
Yeah.
this is more
Yeah,
than an
it's-
isolated incident.
Yeah, I would echo Alex. It's this property.
Okay,
Yeah.
Doing a quick check, it looks like there's only maybe 3 that are on the Airbnb website.
Mhm.
Okay,
Did you go to like Verbo
checked.
or?
No, I didn't check
Airbnb.
all of them, but on Airbnb specifically, I saw 3 properties within the incorporated boundaries.
So, want to make a motion for the hearing?
Sure, I'll move. I move that we have a public hearing to be held at 4 PM on Friday, May 2nd. Nope,
No, no,
We're having.
so we're having the hearing, it's
I'm
more of.
that we keep the
that we
record
keep
open.
it open,
That
sorry.
we keep the record open until 4 PM on Friday, May 2nd, 2025. On ordinance O-03-2025.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. So we would have the resolution at the next meeting, and then we can, assuming that it passes, which I'm pretty sure it will, then we'll be able to have the county.
It'd be 20 days after. It's
Yeah.
It's approved.
Okay, great, thank you.
Sorry, a few more months.
Just don't let them touch that new fence, it looks great.
I know.
Gotta get my
Really
movie
good.
done.
Okay. All right, let's go through the anything that the council would like to update residents on. Darren,
I don't have anything.
okay, yeah,
I want to make sure folks know we have a number of events coming up, so April is very busy. I'm sure you're
Very
gonna list
busy.
a lot of them.
Okay.
The one I wanted to lift up is that on Friday, April 25th, the Kensington Racial Justice Committee is partnering with Kensington Historical Society and the Juneteenth planning team to do a film viewing that is free. And this is an excellent opportunity to come see the story of the integration of Glen Echo Park. It's called Ain't No Back to a Merry-Go-Round. It'll be shown at 7 o'clock. That's Friday, April 25th at the Sabra Forbes Cultural Arts Center, which is right there on University. And we really encourage folks to come. There'll be a discussion afterwards moderated by Jamie Boston. And we encourage people who have memories of the Glen Echo integration efforts to come and share their stories after the film viewing as part of the discussion.
okay. Thank you.
You want to talk about
No,
something
I was
else?
gonna say, it sounded like you had a couple of other things to.
Well, I'll let you talk about the handbook and everything else. Other things that are happening, Sustainable Kensington moving
Always happening.
forward.
Yeah.
We are working on a meeting with the Green Bank and Pre-Collective after last month's meeting. Nate and I had a meeting with them today so that we can put together a work plan, start to engage the town staff as well as our subcommittee on the stormwater plans. I think that's about it.
Yeah.
Matt can update you on the toters.
Oh, yeah, I can do that.
Ask about that.
Yeah.
We have confirmation from Toter that they will be shipped the week of the 17th of this month. We should have them by the 24th. We have spoken to Ecology. The start date for our food waste program is Thursday, May 8th. That's Thursday, May 8th. That gives us enough time to receive the 13-gallon bins, place the
Label
stickers
them.
on them and deliver them to the residential properties. So Thursday, May 8th.
Gives us time to film another video.
I do.
Is that,
I
is
still
that,
have pizza boxes in the
is
back of my car.
is that date firm enough so people can now submit their
Yes.
compost crew?
Yeah,
Cancellations?
We actually had Ecology call Toter.
Okay,
They buy a lot of bins through their contracts. And we were not getting very far and Tim called them for us and confirmed that it's gonna be shipped the week of the 17th.
I'm the skeptical one. It's like, I like to see him to believe him. Just because we were supposed to have him, end of February or March
Yeah,
or something?
Probably have
like that?
March 7th.
Yeah, so.
Ship to Dietrich.
It's 2 months late.
Well, I am still enjoying my food,
Bowl.
no, I use a little container on my counter and I've been very good about taking it. Of course, it helps that I work over here and I can just drop them at the snack shack. But no, it's been good. Feel good about doing it.
So what does that mean in terms of the educational and outreach activities that we kind of had on pause?
Sure. So we'll send the direct mailer out because it's ready. We're just kind of holding it. Otherwise, we're ready. I know there's a video being worked on by Councilmember Angle and Councilmember Crimmins.
Well, we have 3
Yeah.
videos in the can. Carrie Ann can
Toter.
Carrie Ann can start putting those out on the e-blasts.
Okay.
We can include them when we send out anything on the town of Kensington, like when you send out the tonight's meeting summary, you might grab one of those videos and include a link
Mhm.
to one of them, one of the three. And, you know, have the dates right there at the bottom.
Okay.
So everything we send out should start including.
I just wanna also add, with the bin, when you receive it, every bin will include 20 compostable bags.
Yeah, the bags are here. We
Yeah,
have.
we've
bags.
gone ahead, we purchased these bags. We will give every resident 20 bags. We will not supply them after that. This is kind of to help everyone get along. The bags that we acquired, you can buy on Amazon or any local grocery store, or they can buy something that they're comfortable with, using.
As long as they're compostable.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
and, Ecology and, the Bioenergy Center had both recommended that we tell residents to use the compostable bags instead of not using a liner. So they've asked.
What about the other outreach efforts? We were gonna do, I think, a mailer. and
Yeah,
then we
we
were
said
also-
Yeah,
would
we have
do
the
that.
direct mailer.
Mhm.
and
I
then-
know.
but then the sticker also.
The sticker, okay, so there, when you open the bin lid, there's gonna be a sticker with a QR code. There's gonna be a serial number on it. So we know what bin went to what address. And then there's a QR code that will link you directly to our website that will provide additional information on what can be
Good.
put into the food waste program. So, and then that will allow us to
No
update
glass.
if anything changes, as opposed to putting the items directly on the sticker.
Just thought of one other issue, and I can't remember if we've discussed this before, but if there are residents who have a toter already
Mhm.
because of compost crew, but maybe they want to switch service.
Mhm.
They probably don't want two toters. So I don't know if people just have you come back and pick it up if you drop one off, or is
So
there a
the plan
requirement?
was to do the same thing we did with the recycling toters 15 years ago. The bin goes to the house. If you don't want to use it, that's up to you. And that kind of got people to get into the recycling, because we got a lot of pushback moving from the bins to the toters on recycling.
People wanted to return them, they didn't
Return
want them.
Not allow them. Now, I know there's maybe a couple residents that want to stay with their existing actual compost
Sure.
crew. I'm not gonna be mean. I mean, if they call us and ask, I will, but
I just don't
really
want,
we
I
want-
mean, most people that compost don't want to waste giant plastic.
Yeah.
Toters.
yeah, I mean,
Would
We'll
they,
figure
could they
something
swap it? Like, the towns would, when we deliver it, can we say that they'll pick up the compost crew one and recycle it or repurpose it or something?
Those are nice little toters. I'm
No,
sure
I
we
was
can find
thinking
somebody to
use
It's
the
swap.
also really dirt, they get really,
Well, you can't
Yeah.
clean it.
yeah, you can, but I mean,
I don't know. I mean, if there's situations, just have them call us. We'll figure it out.
okay.
I mean, like I said, I mean, we want people to take the bin. We want them to try this, but I mean, if there is a situation, we'll figure something out.
Yeah. So,
There's gonna be some rockiness
There
when we
is, and-
start.
and
I mean, it
Ecology
just
knows
takes-
that.
Yeah,
Ecology knows that, we know that, there's, my guess is the first couple pickups, there's gonna be things in there that they're not gonna be able to take. The facility knows this, and we'll kind of learn as we go.
mhm.
Do we have current ADUs within the town that are occupied by two different households?
Not that I'm aware of. Now, there's a lot of households in the town that have more than one toter. They have 2 or 3 recycling toters.
Yeah, easy.
Have you just?
You see how it works?
What happens when you get 4 kids? You get 2 of each.
Yeah, I mean, if we get a house that needs more than a 13-gallon bin,
I guess my
yeah.
thought was if you have a property that has a legal ADU and you have 2 different households and they aren't choosing to
yeah,
how would you issue a toter to an ADU that's under the same address of the first house?
we would just issue in the spreadsheet,
So,
going to the same address. and
Yeah.
We have 2.
Cause we'll have
Two
some
bins
extra
of that.
ones. so
Yeah, I
we-
mean, we have the situation with
Yeah.
the recycling toters.
so, but also then as if people come and apply for ADUs, just to put it into our process of like,
Yeah,
do you
and
want
I
a
mean,
toter?
yeah, I mean, we're only talking about a handful
Yeah.
of situations.
Yep.
there, so.
Cause there's still people that use the smaller recycling containers, cause they just don't
They
have
don't have
that
enough
much,
recyc- Yeah.
and it's just easier for them to handle.
Yeah.
And I know the townhouses, the new townhouses that were built have some storage issues with the toters, the larger recycling.
Yeah,
toters.
the
Yeah,
garages
huge.
can't fit
Yeah.
them.
So,
Yeah.
um,
Okay. Good. Anything else, Nate?
I think there was one.
Oh,
No,
sorry.
I'm done.
You done?
Yeah.
I don't have anything. else.
Okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
thank you.
Connor?
Ann and I last night attended the Montgomery County Public Schools Boundary Study Public Information Meeting. It really was just to baseline what the process will look like. So if you have been paying attention, there was no new information. But it helped to set out some of the timelines of what is happening. So for those who aren't aware, boundary study just determines what addresses feed into what schools. They made clear again, elementary school boundaries are not to be touched during this. So all of the kids who go to KP will continue going to KP, but they will look at data for elementary schools as they have to determine where elementary schools feed, meaning into what middle school, and then from what middle school into what high school. This is happening because Woodward High School has been reconstructed. It's being used as a holding school for a year, but it will come online in 2027, in the fall of 27, as will Crown, as will some other projects around the county. So they have to determine new boundaries. The biggest things to know from a timeline perspective is that they have already gathered all of the data. They've done a lot of the analysis. They are starting to work on different options for boundaries. And in May of 2025, they are expecting to release the initial boundaries for Woodward and what impacts WJ. That would then go into a public review session where they would hold 4 meetings, 2 or 3 in person, 1 online, solicit additional feedback. They would issue another survey. They try to, get additional community input, which they would then go back and synthesize and refine the boundary options. And they would then come out with a second set in September of 2025. They would do that process again. That's round 3. They would solicit input, feedback, do a survey, synthesize one more time. And in round 4, they would submit what they believe to be the final boundaries, which they would then plan to send to the superintendent. Their plan is to have this all done by March of 2026. So a little less than a year from now, they want the boundaries fully approved by the school board. And the rationale for that is that they need the time from March of 26 until August of 27 to do all their staffing planning, their bus routing, their vendor contracts, and their outreach to families to notify them of what their new boundaries will be.
So are they trying to make sure that the boundaries that they choose, that parents aren't gonna get upset? I mean, they're just basically gonna come out and say, these are the boundaries? Is
Yes,
what you're-
I mean, I think their intent here through multiple rounds is to put out the initial and then let the feedback flow.
Okay.
From that feedback and community engagement, they will look at refining it, but they are doing it through 5 guiding principles. So the things that they're looking at, and they're asking actively right now in the initial survey, which is on their website, is to rank by preference and rank order their 5 guiding principles. The first is the demographic characteristics of the student population. So this is everything from race to free and reduced meals, special education, secondary languages, right? What is the makeup of the population? The second guiding principle is geography. So what is the walking zone of the school? What is the traffic and transportation patterns? So what does it take for the bus routing to get there? Do you have to cross major state highways or other traffic impediments? Are there known traffic congestion areas that would delay buses every morning or every afternoon, right? That would be a part of the geography. The third is the stability of school assignments over time. They realize how disruptive this is, and their goal is to, if you rank this, how important it is to you that once these options are set, that they result in a stable assignment for as long a period of time as possible. Their idea being that whatever assignment they have now, like my kids who are in KP, whatever schools are assigned to is probably what they will end up graduating from, right, in the next 15 years. The next one is facility utilization. Their goal is to try and balance every school building to between 80 and 100% utilization. We have some schools well over 100%. Walter Johnson was built for 2,100 and it's at like 3,000, almost 3,100, right? That's considerably over. That's what they're trying to alleviate through opening Woodward. But, you know, they acknowledge that one of their biggest problems is the school facilities they have that are underutilized and the school facilities they have that are overutilized aren't geographically always next to each other, where they can just quickly move a couple of streets around. These are sometimes very much in opposite ends of the district. So what it means is in order to balance, it has a ripple effect where just opening Woodward means that they are looking at reviewing the boundary for 7 different high schools. Just for opening Woodward, they're looking at BCC, Blair, Einstein, WJ, Kennedy, Northwood, Wheaton, Whitman, and obviously Woodward. The ripple effect downstream of that is that means they are also looking at the boundary area for 14 different middle schools. I won't name them all, but they will, they're going to look at, okay, well, it's Argyle and Eastern. So, so that's the problem is this, to balance this 80 to 100%, you know, you move a couple of streets here and then that ripples over here. And then this is what you get into. And I do think, you know, we are aware, right? Kensington's in kind of the far eastern thumb of the boundary area of WJ right now, but we are in close proximity. I mean, our boundaries, our incorporated boundaries come close to the Einstein boundary cluster. They come close to BCC. Silver Creek Middle School is
Well, that was
one
our high
building,
school
yeah,
many, many years
one
ago.
building away. And obviously from the Pitchfork to Kensington Parkwood is, you know, just less than a mile. So, they are actively looking for community engagement. If you go on their website right now, there's a QR code that'll take you to a survey. The survey is to help, again, they want to gauge your rank order preference of their guiding principles. What is most important to you as far as that demographics, geography, stability, facility utilization. They have things like bus times. They have things like, you know, does your kid going to the same school the whole time matter the most, right? So,
So $1 million question. Is the boundary, would that take into account that the town would like to stay in the same school district
this did
together?
not come up last night, but in other meetings that we've attended, what has been expressed, and this was directly from Dr. Taylor, the superintendent, is that, you know, no such previous deals, understandings would be necessarily honored. If it works, it works. But it, you know, geographically, because of the CSX lines or Connecticut Avenue or Metropolitan.
So you could sit there and say this side's going to BCC, north side's going to Einstein, and the west side's going to to Woodward.
That is.
You could see that?
I think there is a possibility that, especially with CSX and Connecticut Avenue, and let's be honest, the congestion that Kensington can have, especially in the afternoon, that I've heard about it. I've just heard about it.
You've sat in it.
That they may say, you know, things east of Connecticut should flow east and things west flow, you know, that is certainly the analysis that they're doing when they talk about transportation patterns. So.
Okay, well, I think it's gonna, I mean, I know a lot of things are happening and people are busy, but I think that's something that we need to get out to our residents
Yep.
so they understand that we may not have this opportunity to stay in the same school district, that could happen. You know, once again, we don't have a lot of control and they're dealing with a lot more kids than they were when we actually got the north side into the WJ cluster when they had split it out, because there weren't that many kids.
Yeah.
You know, I think the May opportunity, those meetings, May 12th, 13th, 14th, are when the maps have been revealed. That's an important time to do education and outreach to the
Right.
community. We should probably plan to do special communication so people know that process is happening.
I mean, I think it's really important because people are gonna be like, wait, what?
Yeah.
What are you guys doing?
This is a personal anecdote that I will layer on top. Last night they solicited quite a few written questions. They answered 6. They say that they will, affinitize and categorize and try and address topically all of the questions. And I acknowledge that there were more questions asked than could be answered, and I sympathize. I've moderated those meetings before, but they had time and they chose not to do it. I say that only to mean in some of these community engagement forums, I don't know how much back and forth engagement there will be with the public. And it may be that attending the more formalized process of going to the actual Board of Education meetings where you can register to testify and you can ask questions, there's many ways to engage in the process, and, people may need to think about things that require them to, go to these formal meetings.
Well, I know the last time they were working on this and then they postponed it because it was COVID or what, but it was all about property tax and they don't want to hear that. It sounds like they're avoiding that because that was always a big thing. Oh, you can't move me into Einstein, property tax, or
Yep.
they're my property value,
House
excuse me,
value.
my house value is gonna go down because they're moving me. So it sounds like they're not even entertaining.
Well,
it.
it's a different company altogether,
Okay.
right? So that company, ZYX, a couple of years ago was gathering up a bunch of data,
Yeah,
and it was contentious. And part of it was that they were gathering data and the thought was that they would make recommendations and they never did. COVID, stumbled into play. Some of that data may still be being used, but they've had to update all of that, right? For the last couple of years, there's been population shifts, especially with school-age children. I mean, one thing they did say that I think is very good to hear is that they are working very closely with Montgomery County Park and Planning on both the current pipeline of approved projects, but also the forecasted pipeline of housing projects and their calculations of school population, like that will be driven by future
we got that
development.
whole Holy Cross neighborhood that's going up
Right.
there on.
And,
Strathmore.
the county has different tables that they, different formats of housing, townhouse versus apartment versus single family, and how many bedrooms. They have a calculation for how many school children it should generate.
And they've been wrong many times.
That is the asterisk on that.
Yeah,
Is that sometimes those projections have been wildly off.
well, they've been selling schools and they sold schools for a while, only to find out they needed them back.
So Anne brings up, so for the Woodward cluster, May 12th is an in-person meeting. May 13th is an in-person meeting. There will be more information as these get closer. May 14th will be virtual, as well as there will be an in-person May 14th. So that will be what will be considered round 2.
Okay.
So that is our next moment of engagement. We will do our best to message it because we don't want it to get lost with Crown Damascus is also happening. Theirs will come in June. They're kind of 1 month staggered behind us, but just so that people are showing up. My guess is that people most likely want to show up to the meetings that are pertaining to our boundary areas, not Crown. So that will be round 2 is May. Then they'll go back July and August, like I said. Then September will be round 3. And then they'll refine over October, November, and then December, late November, December. Right now they are forecasting for round 4.
Oh, well,
And
thank
then
you.
from that will lead to they want to have it approved by the Board of Education, like I said, in March of 2026.
Is there 2 quick clarifications? Can I? So when you said that this will get to the May round will have the
Yes.
initial boundaries of Woodward. WJ, that means de facto, they'll have all the other boundaries for the other 7 that are affected. Will they have them drawn too?
No, because it sounds, they're still doing Crown and Damascus, but yeah, their map, if you look at their website, is things you can't see at home, but for Nate.
These are the.
All of these, yeah.
But
They
they'll have all
will,
of
they
them.
will redo the catchment areas for
Okay.
each of these.
Yeah, so that'll
Yeah.
be all done together.
So that involves those down county consortium schools as well as,
And then the keeping together of the elementary schools, that means that our school would stay the same for
for
at least
KP.
KP, but then
Yes.
after that, all bets are off and anyone can be
Right.
pulled into different
This is
places.
this is an anecdote, right? This isn't anything factual, but like our kids, my kids go to KP. But then KP could be aligned to like
Yeah.
BCC or to Silver Creek, right? They may reassign where the elementary school, what middle school it flows to.
But that's my question is, after elementary school,
Mhm.
could those elementary school students be broken up and
Yes.
sent to
Yeah.
different middle schools?
Yeah,
Not
so
all of KP
let's say they
goes
they
to
do the
this-
boundary down Connecticut, right?
Yeah,
Your kids may go to a different middle school than my kids.
yeah, okay. That's so. No, thanks.
Okay. Any other questions from any questions from the audience or online? Okay, thank you. Thank
Thanks
you
for
for
coming.
going to those meetings.
The description seemed longer than the meeting itself.
Well,
Not really.
okay, we're gonna move things around a little bit. We're gonna go ahead and do public appearances. If there's anything on that you would like to speak about that's not on the agenda, this is your opportunity. Anybody in the audience? Anybody online? Joe?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Furman. I just want to mention that I thought the petition drive on the proposed sale of Joseph Park was really a wonderful example of grassroots democracy here in town. It was very, very impressive, and I think kudos are in order to the petition drive leaders, Beth Meyer, Leslie Olson, and Alicia Schechter. And just to clarify, the referendum, if it will be held, would be on June 2nd. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you. And also, since you had mentioned, Mayor Furman, that there may be different candidates for the for council at that election, I'm just wondering if Councilmember Crimmins and Bartram have made a decision about whether they're standing for re-election or not, a firm decision. Just curious.
I'll let them answer.
Sure.
I have not yet filed.
It doesn't mean you haven't made a decision as to whether you're running or not.
It's true.
I would not do so without
Filing.
consulting with my better half.
Thank you.
I have not made a firm decision. I'm aware that we have one public meeting before the filing deadline.
Correct.
And so I would plan to announce a firm decision next month. Do you want me to run, Joe?
I just want you to make up your mind. I'd love to know. Anyway. We'll wait till
You
next
want
month, I guess,
next
huh?
month?
Guess we'll have to.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, don't see any hands, so we'll go ahead. Oh, I didn't say what I needed to say.
Yeah, you're enough.
Well, I feel like Connor just took all the air out of the room. I don't-
Wow. Remember, we make no decisions about county school boundaries.
I know, yeah, we don't. The only thing I wanted to mention was Day of the Book. That is this week, this month, which is the 27th. It's gonna be a beautiful day. I've already made sure that I'll take responsibility for that. That's probably a mistake, but Day of the Book has usually been pretty good and it's got a good record, but I hope everybody comes out and enjoys it. And Ellie puts a lot of work into it. Got a lot of great volunteers and she's got a good lineup. So very much looking forward to it. And then, of course, the day before is Trash to Treasure. So make sure if you've signed up, you'll get your trash or treasure out on the street and have opportunities to get rid of a few things or add a few things. So, okay, that's all I'm going to say at this point. So we will move on. Let's see, we've got anything from the town manager before we go into the hearing for the budget?
The only thing I'll mention is that we've been in discussions with Montgomery County and Montgomery Parks about clearing the debris within the culvert.
Right.
We've received a lot of feedback from the community about.
This is at Frederick Avenue and
Correct.
Kensington Parkway.
This is the culvert and the bridge at Frederick Avenue and Kensington Parkway. There's there's a good amount of debris and now trash and stuck in the culvert. We have never been responsible for clearing that culvert or the creek. Montgomery Parks has decided that we are, which doesn't make any sense because we don't even have the authority to enter into the creek bed because it's their jurisdiction and the body of water belongs to the state. So we brought in Council President Stewart's staff to help clarify this. And we received a very ambiguous response from Parks stating that if it was their responsibility, their staff could not maintain it and the next heavy rain would clear it. And that was it. So we're still trying to get them to understand that it's their responsibility. We have receipts. As long as I've been here, that they've cleared it, their parks management team has cleared it. And Council President Stewart's staff is continuing to work with us to clarify the issue, but it's unfortunate.
Okay. Do you want me to send an email to MIDI to ask you?
I think it's necessary. Yeah.
Okay. We'll get together on some of the background to make sure I've got it right before I send it to her. She's the head of parks and I got to know her very well as we were working on the circle. So, okay. All right, let's do that next week for sure. Take a look at that. Yeah, it's, I don't know if anybody else has been down there, but it is unbelievable.
Yeah.
The amount of stuff that's in there. And I don't know whether it's because they don't have any money. I just don't understand what the problem is here. And for them to say, well, we can't do it.
Yeah, their initial response to us was, and Alex might be able to clarify this, was they didn't believe there was an issue, even with the pictures we sent them. And they felt that it would be resolved with a heavy rain, and that's kind of what they came back and told Council President Stewart's office as well. Yeah, but apparently we do. So.
Unbelievable.
Would they assume the risk then that if it backs up and floods and damages is something that?
Well, I mean, that was what I relayed to Council President Stewart's office is, okay, they failed to do their job before the trees got into the culvert. So if they can't get it out of the culvert, why? I mean, they're not even doing their job from the beginning.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're pushing it onto the town and we don't have the resources. And I mean, has the resources, but it's not our responsibility to go down there and clear out the culvert. So.
Well, if something were to happen, then that's our fault.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean,
And
that's just ridiculous.
And they're well aware. We've had two water rescues in the time I've been here at that intersection due to flooding and the culvert getting clogged. And I will say on the good news on that, in talking to the county, we are working with them to put in a flood gauge monitor at that intersection. So they'll be able to monitor it if we do have a flooding issue at that location. So.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, I think the only thing we have left is the hearing for the budget. Matt?
Thank you, Mayor. Council, before you this evening is a public hearing for ordinance number O-03-2025. This is an ordinance of the Mayor and Town Council of Kensington to amend, I'm sorry, wrong one. An ordinance of the Mayor and Town Council to appropriate and adopt the fiscal year 2025-2026 as FY26 budget and to levy a tax on certain real property and personal property under the Maryland Tax Article of Annotated Code as amended. We held a budget forum earlier this evening where we kind of went in depth over the budget, so I'm going to give a very brief description. If there's any questions, we'll proceed from there. There is a budget letter here that's been out to the public and the council, which provides information and detail on our FY26 proposed budget. There's not a lot of changes this year, at least on our end. Really, the only things of note that I would say is Lisa Carney, who is a contractual employee through the town for the archives. We have moved her up to general government, so she will become an employee of the town on July 1st. It's a part-time position. We moved that out of professional services. It just made sense for us. She is basically archiving our records. This was kind of the plan when Mayor Furman started this a few years ago. And, you know, Lisa's been a great great contributor to the town thus far, so we're happy to bring her on to the staff.
I think
officially.
it's been a real successful endeavor when we agreed to take over the archives from KHS and put it under professional care.
Yeah.
It's been very beneficial to the town and extremely helpful.
Yeah, so within general government, you'll notice the funds increased this year, partially it's because we moved Lisa up to staff. With regards to general government, there's not a lot of changes. We're requesting a 2.7 COLA for all town employees. This is in coordination with the CPI, the 12-month CPI, which is our standard policy. I've also requested a couple of small merit increases for a couple of employees of 1.3 and 2.3%. They're listed in the document. The other thing that I kind of want to highlight is we've asked for some funding for a consultant. In addition, we put some money in last year for a consultant for the DRB. We're keeping that in this year. The reason why is Montgomery Planning is going to do a refresh of our 2012 sector plan. We've been talking with them for over a year. They are interested. They typically don't do something this quickly. As some of you know, prior to 2012, we were 1978,
Yeah.
right? 78.
Yeah, so for the wedges plan.
Yeah, so planning is very interested in Kensington. One of the reasons is the proposed Summit Avenue Extended project, which would completely change the northwest quadrant of the town. Planning is very supportive of that project, the potential housing that could go into that project. So they want to address that within a planning. They're probably going to look at some FARs, changing them around, some density. They're aware of some issues that the council is eternally with some garden style apartments in the community and maybe potentially rezoning them. But this is a project that planning will work with town staff, the development and review board, and we plan on hiring a consultant to get us through this. It's probably going to be a 2-year process, but we'll have a new sector plan and a blueprint on how development will be in the town. So that's really the main thing that would change the scope of the town. We're not quite there yet. We're just getting to that, and the funding is in this current.
Yeah, because I think even in 2012, office buildings were still a thing.
Yeah.
And they're just not anymore. So.
Yeah.
Well, and I would say, the 2012 plan was certainly an upgrade from the 78 plan. We had 2 major projects completed under it, and then a set of townhouses, which was a conversion from a single family residential unit. But through the ULI TAP study and all the work and effort we put into Summit Avenue Extended, right, that and the change of market for office and the extreme need for housing, that these areas are ripe for a review. And Summit Avenue really is what unlocks that whole area, as Matt said. And it really does provide an opportunity to relook at the commercial value, if you do 100% commercial, the residential, if it's 100% residential, and then that mixed use FAR mixture to try and promote as much housing as can fit. So.
With regards to revenues, we are going to see, or we're anticipating to see an increase in property taxes through real property. This is basically due to the assessments. As everyone got their assessments in January, properties went up 20-30% in some cases. We're anticipating about $125,000 in increased revenue out of that. The only concern I have there is we do get a list of larger properties that are challenging those assessments. This is the largest list I've ever seen.
These are the commercial
These are
properties.
for large scale commercial properties. These are for properties worth more than $2 million. The abatements on those far exceed what SDAT typically puts into our general corrections. And I don't know, we don't have a list on how many residents are challenging. Now, how realistic is it that they're going to win? I don't know, but that is something that it definitely caught my eye. I've never seen a list that long. So we'll see what happens there. We brought income tax down. We're being overly cautious with that, probably too cautious on income tax. We have seen a slight decline since 3 years ago when we had income revenues over $1 million. Is it going to be as low as what I'm thinking? Probably not. But with everything going on the federal level, specifically with Health and Human Services, we have a lot of employees that are affiliated with NIH. We're just being overly cautious on that one. Susan and I, had to put this number in 6 weeks ago. We might bump it up a little. We'll continue to talk about it, but right now we're not in a budget crunch on anything, so maybe just kind of leave it where it is and kind of see where it goes.
On that property, the storage that, they're appealing,
They are
but they
appealing.
have paid.
They have paid, correct?
But did we get our portion of that money?
Yeah.
So if they win the appeal, we return it?
Yeah, I mean, if they were to win an appeal, it wouldn't go back down to what it was.
Right, I
But there
understand that.
is a possibility that we would have to return funds, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
But do they have, if they lose that appeal, is there another step for them, or is that
I believe they can go to the Supreme Court.
okay,
I mean,
of Maryland?
they can appeal as far as they go.
Okay, I don't
Yeah, I
know.
mean, so they're in the Maryland tax court right now. They're appealing before the Maryland tax court, and then I think they can appeal if they lose to the Supreme Court in Maryland.
Okay,
Yeah,
I don't know what the,
yeah.
okay.
Like I said, I don't anticipate it going back to what I think it was 23.
No, I mean, like
$24.
every other property, it
Yeah.
should have been
I mean,
increased.
we've seen, the assessments have been interesting. I mean, we saw the Bakers Union double. We saw a lot of residents went up 20-30%. We got a lot of phone calls in January and emails on this. That's why in the budget form, we put that slide in there that said, we do not make the assessments through SStat sets it on the residential side. There's a local office in Montgomery County that assesses the commercial side. All we do is set the property tax rate. Speaking of property tax rate, we are recommending that the property taxes all stay the same for the 7th consecutive year. Real property will remain at 13.12 cents. The personal property tax rate on the businesses will remain at 80 cents per $100 assessed value. There is an exemption on the first $20,000 of inventories, and the utility tax will stay at $5 per $100 of assessed value, which is been the case for the last 7 years now.
Okay.
Again, not a lot changed this year. We pretty much kept, the revenues and expenditures on the main pretty even than last year. I mean, we don't have huge changes in our budget. We're small. We use incremental budgeting, kind of figure out what we spent last year. The changes are really with the CIP. Our ARPA funds have been released, so we're able to allocate those funds into the CIP. We did run an unappropriated surplus last year, which included a little bit of funds that we did not put in last year. We ended up not allocating any funds to the CIP after a recommendation from the auditor. We ran into a negative fund balance question last year on the ARPA funds. They recommended that we basically not allocate funds last year. So a little bit of that is, so you'll see our CIP allocations are quite high this year. We anticipate our allocations to be quite high again next year with the remaining ARPA funds being released. And then in 3 years or 2 years, 2 to 3 years, we will probably be in that $400,000-$600,000 unappropriated surplus range, kind of where we've been historically previously.
Well, the ARPA funds is really what has allowed us to do a lot of this work.
Yeah, and the projects with delays with the engineering and everything has allowed us to gain an incredible amount of interest on that money.
Right.
Our interest was over $200,000 more than we anticipated. We are about to start the Hadley Place storm drain project in May. The St. Paul project and the Armory project will follow that pretty quickly, so we're not going to have those funds to gain interest on going into the new year. And then we're spending money. I mean, we bought the Serve Pro property. I know this is a little slightly off topic. I have not been able to confirm with Shannon yet, with Senator Zucker's office on the reappropriation bill. But our expectation is that we're going to have the $800,000 reappropriated from the bond bills from the state.
Yeah, it was on the list.
The prior authorization.
Yeah, the prior authorization, but didn't have the final results.
As long as we have confirmation for that prior to the next council meeting, we will make an amendment. Well, I'm sorry, we'll have to make an amendment. Yeah, we'll make an amendment to this to add the $800,000 and allocate it to the CIP
Okay.
for that. And that would go towards the acquisition of the M&T drive-through property. So, but again, not a lot changes here. It's really kind of just figuring out our infrastructure projects and really what happens at the federal level and how much it affects our income.
Well, if you were at I think I sent a memo out to the council about the meeting I attended with the county council, and it was very doom and gloomy as far as on their end. I mean, we don't we don't rely on federal grants the way the county and the state do for big projects. It does make a big difference.
That reminds me, we did confirm, the rail crossing elimination grant is moving forward. They plan to start next month, with like an initial conversation. This was a grant, a matching grant that we're working with MTA on at the state level to do, an analysis on a potential overhead crossing at the Kensington train station. They're moving forward with that. And Alex and I got confirmation from, the state of Maryland that the SS4A funds are still available, and they encouraged us to go ahead and apply this round for the
bridge.
separated pedestrian biking crossing bridges over the CSX Railroad on Connecticut.
Okay, that'll make
So,
such a big difference.
I will say the grants that are impacting the town directly are still available, and we have not seen any issues with what would affect us directly. So
Okay, but we're not fronting the grant money,
we would have to front something with that number.
but not the entire amount.
No,
though.
It's usually
State-
20%.
Yeah, the state would
Okay.
have to be involved in this because it's their right of way.
Right,
You mean as a match?
Right.
20%,
Yeah.
But the way that federal grants usually work, it's a reimbursement basis.
no, I
So in that
understand,
sense-
they're all that way,
The
but
state
last
would have
last
to-
federal grant we got took 20 years to get reimbursed for, so I'm not.
So obviously, State Highway Administration would have to be involved if the pedestrian crossing over CSX were to ever move forward. We just don't have that kind of money by ourselves, plus it's their right of way,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. But I'm not kidding, it was Susan.
took 20
Regan.
years.
Yeah, it
Susan
was
got
over
it after
20 years.
20
to
It
get that
happened a
money.
couple years ago.
Between
didn't it? I'm
six-
not-
We got
Yeah.
it, we actually got it under the Trump
Yeah.
administration, believe it or not. Yeah, so.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, there's not a lot of changes. It's pretty similar to last year. If you attended the budget forum, we kind of went into much greater detail. The document that was shown at the budget forum will be added to the town website, as it always is, under the budget category. And if anyone has any questions, or if they don't have, think of something after tonight, please feel free to just email.
Okay,
us.
well, the hearing will be kept open. Does the council have any questions before we open it up to the few people that are hanging in there?
I don't have a question, but I do want to acknowledge the level of work that you and Susan and Alex did putting all of this together, as well as the budget forum. It was a great thing that we started, like this year's was, I think, because we had one under our belt, even better than last year's. But especially to help it, we had 3 issues tonight where it's things that we are the closest form of government, but it's not directly our responsibility, right? We had Airbnbs. And then with the budget one, I thought that was very helpful to help people know those things that we do control and those that we don't. And then how, all the big picture of where all of these monies are going and why this is a 1-year budget, but with like a 25-year vision. So that was just a great amount of work. And I want to acknowledge that you guys did a great job.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
guys.
Absolutely.
I mean, as I tell Mayor Furman all the time, we are literally rebuilding this town. We are literally rebuilding this town. And it's just takes a lot of time and money.
One thought just on sharing, the materials from tonight's budget forum will be up on the website, that if there's a way to, I know something just came out in the
Distribute it.
next town journal.
Can we
but having a
distribute it with the
hyperlink-
minutes?
So it's
Yeah.
linked, so
Notes.
when the summary goes out, when.
This'll-
Alex
it'll
sends the
include
summary
this.
out, they will include this, and we
Yeah.
can include
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
presentation from earlier this evening.
I was also thinking of just, some people don't read those.
Yeah.
Are you
Some people-
calling our residents low informational?
Maybe I'm optimistic about how many people read the town journal, but like it.
I had hoped more, but it does seem like, it's like anything else you get in the mail. Sometimes you
But
put it
I-
aside and you plan to read it later.
Hyperlink for the digital version, but also just directing people
Okay.
to the web.
Well, there
to the
usually
budget
is a link.
materials.
Yeah, there's a link.
There's always a link.
Yeah,
too.
we'll attach them. We, any ordinance or resolution we pass, there's a link. Anything like this, we would add a link. And again, it's on our budget page on the website, all the information.
I mean, the one way we could maybe increase turnout is to have some sort of like contest and prize. I think we're running into,
But we had food. We
well,
had-
no, I think I was chatting with some folks who attended tonight, now that so many people are driving back into the office. It's just,
It's harder.
it's a much harder window, any window.
Well, and that is a problem with starting at 6 o'clock too. It's you're just getting home, you haven't dealt with your children, or you haven't
4
had a
o'clock, we did
chance to
before,
eat.
had more people, but that was,
That was
But that's,
Different
di-
time.
Yeah,
that's,
different. time.
yeah,
yeah.
So let's spend the next year thinking about when would be a good time to do it. A better
Yeah.
time, whether that people could attend.
I forgot to mention something in my regular, the new sidewalk on Howard Avenue.
It's great.
Between Connecticut
Yes,
and
that's right.
Armory. Jack's team finished infilled the concrete last week. We do need to cut the ramp on the clock shop side. The mill and pave is scheduled for May. And then we'll put in the new crosswalk. We'll see how it goes. I'm gonna be perfectly honest with you. There is a chance that we're gonna have to move to a three-way stop there. We're not entirely comfortable with how that traffic movement's gonna be there at that intersection coming down from
Fine.
Connecticut. With just a crosswalk, so something we'll take a look at.
That's
So,
fine.
Yeah,
Seems like it's a safer.
I mean,
way
most of
there.
the afternoon, it's a always stop anyway.
yeah,
It's
so,
Armory and Howard.
No, this,
Right in front
yeah,
of the service
by the
station.
clock stop.
yeah, so they finished the concrete. We gotta do the curb cut on the clock shop side. Like I said, we'll mill and pave and put in the new crosswalk and the new lines, and we're looking at May.
And
Were
we
you
did,
able to,
go ahead.
were you able to level it on Connecticut where it met, remember there was a
It's not,
mismatch,
it's not great.
but it was able to pass.
Yeah.
Well, they put a little, like a curb up there
So,
too.
I'll go check it out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we had gotten feedback that they wanted us to run a guardrail 80 feet down from the intersection, which we thought was crazy. I mean, we couldn't understand why they wanted it, but they needed to meet certain requirements with the state. So what we did is we just moved the guardrail back onto the existing parapet and ran it down. If the state has an issue with it, let them tell us.
Alright.
They put a back curb in to help with ADA. You might have seen it.
I saw,
Okay, so there's a back curb up at the top of the storm drain inlet. If the state wants to makes us make improvements from there, fine. But our engineer was happy with how it turned out, so.
yeah,
Awesome.
right now we're having, if you walk up there and you look as you get to the top, the gentleman that has been panhandling at Pliers Mill and Connecticut that's his disposal area of everything people give him. So Public Works has had to clean it up a couple of times. And it, quite frankly, it needs to be cleaned probably once a week. It's a real disaster over there. Stuff. So. Okay, well, this is a hearing, so now anybody in the audience, if you have a budget question or online, Al?
Good evening, Al Carr. I live on Washington Street, and I just had 3 points that I wanted to make about the budget. So, we had the excellent budget forum earlier this evening, and there was a discussion about debt. There is a state program called the Local Government Infrastructure Finance Program and Matt was kind enough to get some figures for that program. Like a 20-year loan is 4.55%, 10-year loan is 3.7%. And any of you have shopped for a car loan or a mortgage lately, those rates are pretty attractive. And I was looking at the town charter on page 7. There's section 411 referendum C, as in Charlie, that talks about debt. And it's a little confusing how it's worded, but it looks like if the town were to borrow money, go into debt, it might have to bring that to the voters for a question. So sort of my question related to that is if the town wanted to go in that direction and consider incurring debt, to fund some of these capital projects, what would be required? Would the town have to do like a resolution, and then that would, go on to the next ballot or the next special election? And you don't have to answer right now, but I just wanted to throw that out there as a thought. And then my second point was, we were talking earlier tonight about the Airbnbs, and obviously that is creating some extra work for the town staff to have to deal with the related issues. And I noticed that both Rockville and Gaithersburg have a 2% tax on lodging, temporary lodging less than 30 days. So that would suggest to me that perhaps municipalities have the authority to tax, Airbnb/hotels. So maybe that's something for future consideration. The town could have a tax on that. So at least we would get a little bit of revenue to the extent that there are any Airbnbs in the town and we're having to deal with, related problems. And then my final point is on revenues. So there is a company called Dark Fiber and Internet that placed their fiber optic cable network under the town rights of way a few years ago. And they are a private company. They are in the same status as Verizon or Pepco or Washington Gas. They're considered to be a public utility. But they've allowed their incorporation to lapse. So they're not paying any taxes. They're supposed to pay taxes to the county and to any municipalities that they pass through. So the town might want to talk with Sue Ellen about what could be done about that. When I spoke to David Lapp, who is the People's Counsel for the state of Maryland, he said the way to maybe go about that would be to file a complaint with the Public Service Commission, because they do have status with the Public Service Commission, and that might trigger them to, bring their house into order, because they probably owe the town tens of thousands of dollars from the past, and they probably, going into the future, they probably should be paying, thousands of dollars every year in utility property taxes to the town. And we are fortunate that we have our town attorney, Ms. Ferguson, who is probably one of the foremost experts in the state on these municipal telecom and franchising and utility issues. So if you were to task her with that, I'm sure that she would be able to handle that. Thank you.
Thank you, Al. Is that company even available?
They're defunct according to the state.
Mhm.
The county, thank you, Al, thank you, I appreciate that. We are aware.
Yeah,
They are listed, they use the term defunct, correct? So we've reached out to the state about this. So the state, as Al mentioned, the
But like
state.
forfeit is the term.
Yeah, nobody's receiving money from them.
right.
I will say, and I don't know, and Sue Ellen doesn't need to respond to this, but maybe I'll ask her tomorrow offline. The fiber optics that were placed by them is the county fiber.
Right.
It's the actual county fiber that connects the county buildings and the town hall. So I don't know if that plays into this at all. I have no idea.
I think that's their fiber. It belongs to this company. And the county is one of their customers, just like with Verizon. The county is one of Verizon's customers, but this network is owned by this company, Dark Fiber and Infrastructure. It's not owned by the county. So, the fact that the county is one of their customers doesn't change the fact that they should have their incorporation in order. They should be paying taxes. They have a website. They're still, soliciting customers. So they just have allowed this thing to lapse, and SDAT claims they don't really have the tools to be able to deal with it.
Well, we are aware. Susan's been communicating with the state and the county about it. We'll continue to look into it, and we'll talk with Sue Ellen offline about what we can do. So, but we are aware of this. And
Okay.
Yeah.
You might ask Sue Ellen as well tomorrow, because I'm not going to put her on the spot, regarding if the town were to go into debt, get that clarified as well. I mean, we're not at that point yet now,
Yeah,
so
I
we've
mean-
got probably at least 2 years before we would be even looking to
Yeah,
do that?
as we mentioned at the budget forum, our issue is not FY 26, it's not FY 27,
Yeah.
it's FY 28.
Yeah.
That's when we're gonna kind of have to figure out what we want to do on infrastructure.
Well, and yeah, we probably should be figuring that out in 26, just so we have that, already mapped out. So, okay. All right. Dylan, did you want to add anything, or are you good? Just to,
No, just there is a provision about referendum and debt in the charter, so that would
Okay.
have to be looked at. As to the other issue about the fiber optic company, I don't know enough about that yet to be able to say anything intelligent.
okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Was there any other comments in the audience or online regarding the budget? The hearing will be kept open. Joe?
Thank you, Mayor Furman. I was very impressed by the thorough and authoritative presentation tonight by the town manager, I'm sorry, at the budget forum. I thought that was very well done. Appreciated the spread that the town put out as well. I've spent some time reviewing budget documents from fiscal year 25 and fiscal year 26, and I just have a few questions. I'm wondering, and maybe the town manager is best to address this. What accounts, and maybe for the record, just explain what accounts for the drop in anticipated revenue from fiscal year 2025 to 2026?
There's a couple things. One is the income. We brought the income down. We anticipated dropping it. Now, last year, I think we had $850,000 as expected, and we ended up with we're somewhere in the range of about 967 right now. We brought it down to 800,000 this year. We're anticipating some revenue drops last year there was $100,000 escrow that the town received through a legal decision that is not included this year. We may have to make some changes this year, as I mentioned previously. As long as we get the reappropriation, we might have to add $800,000 for that. But mostly, it's just us being overly cautious on our income side and what we're going to do.
And does it also reflect the drop in the grants funding from ARPA? It looks like it does.
Yeah, but we try to keep that number, outside of the ARPA number. We typically don't include that, although the last year's number, the one that you're looking at FY 25, that did include the $100,000 from the legal decision.
For the Silver Creek?
For the Silver Creek, yeah. So we typically try to we've kept the ARPA funds out the last few years, so they're not listed as revenue, so it doesn't skew us and make us look like we're bringing in $4 or $5 million a year when we're really in kind of that mid-3 range.
I see.
Like I said, we're just being overly cautious this year, kind of wait and see approach. It doesn't affect us. We're not having an expenditure problem right now, and we'll see where we're at next year.
Okay, very good. I see that the ARPA funds are listed in fiscal year 25, at least in the overall budget description.
Correct. And then they are listed as the unappropriated surplus this year. It's down there with the surplus from last year. So you'll see that number.
Been kind of a headache with the audit people on how they wanted it listed, wasn't it? Yeah.
We were advised originally to take it as income, and it turned out to be a mistake, which created a negative fund balance for us. So last year's budget was a mess. Well, that, and we had some assessment problems last year. So we cleaned that up, and that's why we ended up not allocating any funds to the CIP last year. They told us to keep it in the budget. That $238,000 shows up on our unappropriated surplus this year, which will be allocated to the CIP. So the money's all still there. It's just actually being shown
Right.
on the budget this year. So
Good, thank you.
Anything else, Joe?
Yes, a few more questions, please. And this one's a little more granular. I think it's under the other category in the revenue fund category. I'm just wondering if you could explain what accounts for the huge drop in the miscellaneous category there. It was $100,000 in fiscal year 25, and now it's down to $2,500 in fiscal year 26.
that is the $100,000 legal that we received last year. on July 1.
From the Silver Creek.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. And I was wondering if the town manager was that where the $40,000 was found to give to as a donation to Noyes Library? Is that
No,
where?
that was in community art.
Yeah, so we took that out of our, under economic and community development. There was $40,000 allocated towards the mural program. So the council moved that from the mural program over to the donation to the Noyes Children's Library.
Right.
For FY26, the mural program is back fully funded at 40,000 if the town decides to move forward with that, at least at this time. And we also have a separate line item for Noyes Children's Library for $25,000. That is one of the reasons why that line item increased quite a bit. In addition to that, we also added $10,000 for the Maryland Garden pilgrimage. So I can't resist the garden tour, and we added $10,000 for the 250th anniversary event. I will say that is actually in FY27, but our anticipation is that we may have
We'll
to
spend it before July
we may
4th.
need to put some money out beforehand, and
Right.
it's never going to be. It's not going to be 10,000, but
Right.
we put that line item in there, and you know.
So
we
what is
have
the
a-
line item? Where does this appear in the budget? Under what line item?
Under economic and community development. So the line item that talks about economic and community development, what is it, 239,000? You'll notice that it's substantially higher than last year.
And it's those 2 additional events and
And the addition of the Noyes Library,
Right,
where
the
there's an
Noyes
actual
Library.
line item for the 25,000.
which we did not put in this year's current budget.
In the FY25.
Right.
I'm confused now. That noise line item is or is not in the budget in 2020 for fiscal year 26?
For 25, it was not. We used the funds that were in the mural program.
Right, got it.
Okay, and then in FY26,
Mhm.
the mural program is fully funded, and we added a line item for 25,000 for donation to the Noyes Children's Library Foundation. So the line item for the Noyes Children's Library Foundation, which is 25,000, the $10,000 for the Maryland Garden pilgrimage event, and the 250th anniversary, which was $10,000 at all, is the reason for the change in funding for that category from FY25 to FY26.
Okay, thanks.
I'd be happy to talk to you on the phone tomorrow if you have more questions.
I do, just a couple more, and I realize it's late, but this hearing was placed at the very end of the meeting. Under the infrastructure expenses, I see that $15,000 is earmarked for street name signs. There was 20,000 earmarked in fiscal year 2024. Haven't all the street name signs been installed? Nearly all of them?
Yeah.
There's 45 locations total. We have completed 24 of them. We put in an RFP last week to Shannon Baum, who's our sign maker, for an additional 12. We should have all 45 intersections completed by December.
Okay.
That is our goal. We should be at about 36 intersections sometime midsummer, and then we'll finish that last batch by December, and we'll be completed. So.
Good to know. Thank you. We pay, the budget allocates, what, $12,000 a year for street sweeping? And we
Correct,
get
yes.
street sweeping is done twice a year? Is that correct?
We typically only do it once.
It seems like a high number for a one-time street sweeping.
It's almost $7,000 to sweep the streets in the town.
And the budget line item is 12,000?
Yeah, I mean, it's like up to 65, the last quote I got, it's like 6,500. So we do it, we typically do it in the summer before the Labor Day parade. So
It's just a once, I thought it was twice a year we had that done.
not typically, the crew will go around, the Public Works crew has an attachment for our skid steer equipment. They will typically go around at some point. They can get in the curbs and gutters a little better than the commercial truck. Where the commercial truck's good is just going over the main pavement area, but the crew will go into the curb and gutter with the attachment.
Okay.
I would say, to be fair, we address the streets more than once a year, but the commercial truck typically only comes in once.
Okay, thanks. Just two more questions. What if the county budget, what if the county council approves what the county executive is seeking in terms of a 3.5% property tax increase, does that have ramifications for the town of Kensington in terms of its tax revenues? And
No, so not to us. I mean, our tax rate is separate than the county, so we're maintaining a 13.12 cents property assessment. Anything that the county does on their side obviously would affect our residents directly, but it wouldn't change our revenues here in the town.
okay. And finally, on the bridge construction, I noticed, and this is at the south end of town here, that has been pending for quite a while. There was $350,000 that was set aside in the CIP, I think, for fiscal year 24, and now it's $400,000 in fiscal year 25.
Yeah,
Were any of those funds from last year expended and spent on the bridge construction?
Yeah, so we've been going through the engineering and design process. It's completed. So we mentioned in the public forum this evening, they have completed the design and engineering of the 3 bridge repair projects. We are waiting for them to issue the RFP. There is about $30,000 left in the initial contract where Brutus engineering team will oversee the actual construction, the project management, and then the rest of the funds will go towards the actual repairs of the bridges. They're not structural issues. They're more compliance issue things. There is some minor, I guess what they would classify as structural, but all the bridges grade out at 90 or above. There's no issues with them. These are more things like dealing with parapets and dealing with regulations pertaining to the state on how high things need to be, barricades, and make sure people or vehicles don't go into and over the parapets and into the creek. Railings need to be upgraded. There's some, concrete walkways along the bridges that need to be repaired. So it's not really structural. It's more regulatory what they're addressing.
I know I've asked this question before, but when is this work going to be completed and then the bridge is brought up to, total compliance, do you
The
think?
RFP should go out before the end of the fiscal year, so I'm saying, probably May or June. It's probably going to take us about 3 months to go through the bid process on that, and then we'll schedule, hopefully at best, a contractor for early fall, and then they'll set a notice to proceed. So
It sounds like the end of 2026, the work will be completed.
it's possible, yeah.
With the debris field that was mentioned earlier in the meeting, near the bridge at Frederick Avenue and Kensington Parkway, with that debris field that collects there, which is really disgusting, would that be addressed in this bridge construction and repair work? Would that be taken care of under this plan?
If there's debris there, it will probably need to move. It will probably need to be cleared for the repairs, but it wouldn't stop it from happening once the repairs are completed.
Oh, okay. What would it take, do you think, to get that debris field to not accumulate any longer?
Better maintenance from the parks.
Yeah.
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 Thank you, Mayor Furman.
You're welcome. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm serious about that. The parks takes care of the creek.
And I
It's
think
their responsibility.
Matt
Well, it sounds like
mentioned-
they're protesting or reluctant to do so, so.
Yeah, these are like whole trees and sections of trees, Joe. That they didn't want to maintain them prior to them falling into the creek, and they're just letting them flow down with the idea that a heavy rain will just fix it. I mean, where are they gonna go?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned this previously this evening, and we've had problems with them. One of the delays with the bridge project was them asking us to relocate an existing egress. There's been some communication on getting help with permitting to access, because we have to enter into their creek bed, we have to enter into the body of the water. How's an MD&E permit gonna work? There's things that the engineer recommended on doing outside of the RFP, like things that we could do outside of that, so we don't have to go through a permitting process. We have something submitted over to Parks, and Mayor Furman understands my frustration.
Yeah.
So
Okay. All right, are we done? I don't see any other hands. Don't see anybody in the audience. Okay, so we need a motion to keep the hearing open until May 2nd.
Yeah, I move that we hold the public hearing open on ordinance O-02-2025 until 4 PM Friday, May 2nd.
Okay, is there a second?
I second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all right, I will remind everybody that we are meeting a week earlier in May. And that will mean, because for those who are running this year, they have until May 12th to declare. So at our meeting on the 7th, we will not be announcing candidates. Okay, so and I also want to tell the council, I will be sending out this week the deadline for the June issue. So because we will, it's technically the May-June issue, because we will have candidates' profiles will be part of that too. And anything about the referendum will be in there, so and of course Juneteenth will be the big one. So but I'll send that information out. I know you're traveling next week. Have a safe trip.
Thank you.
I know you're traveling next week. Have a safe trip.
Traveling.
Are you traveling? For all those who are traveling, please safe travels for everyone. We look forward to seeing you when you get back.
Thank you.
So,
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
all right, so I need a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Can I get a second? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you very much. Matt, safe drive back to
West Virginia.
that far
Yeah,
away as you
basically.
live.